Hi, everyone, and thank you for being here for One Art's September 2025 reading. With us today, we have five featured poets: uh, James Cruz, Gloria Heffernan, William Palmer, Michael T. Young, and Andrea Potos. Or Potos. Andrea, am I saying your name correctly? I hope Andrea is here. I actually just realized that she wasn't in the room. Oh, okay. Now I see your note, Andrea. Okay. Um, Thanks for clarifying. And apologies for my sort of cryptic asides there. So, yes, again, thank you to everyone for being here. And why don't we go ahead and get underway? So, our first reader is going to be James Cruz, who many of you already know in one way or another, either from his wonderful anthologies. I have a couple right here, in fact, or from taking a workshop, or maybe James's collaborative talks with Rosemary Watola Traumer. So, in any case, so James Cruz is author of Unlocking the Heart, Writing for Mindfulness, Courage, and Self-Compassion, editor of several best-selling poetry anthologies, as mentioned, including Love is for All of Us, a collection of LGBTQ plus love poems. He is also the author of four poetry collections and lives in southern Vermont with his husband. And I'm going to drop links in the chat where you can find out about James and his books and anthologies and the monthly pause, which is a newsletter that he does. And I also wanted to mention James's new book of poetry, Turning Towards Grief, Reflections on Life, Loss, and Appreciation, is forthcoming from Broadleaf Books, and it is currently available for pre-order. James, take it away.
Thank you so much, Mark. Thanks to all of you for being here with us. I want to call out Mark specifically for creating this really vibrant community around One Art. I like to think that I was an early adopter of One Art, I think submitting a long time ago. And I just have taken so much pleasure in watching how the journal has grown over the years and included so many people that I'm just really honored and flabbergasted to be published with, including the folks who are reading with us today. So it's really great to be here. And what I thought I would do actually is just collect a number of the poems that of mine that were published in One Art originally, which I kind of looked back and I was surprised by how many of them there were. And I would mostly read those and share those with you. And I want to start with this one that I think was the first one I published in One Art, and it's called Self-Care. It was written during the pandemic when maybe a lot of us realized we need more self-care, and at least I realized that I was failing at giving myself enough self-care, and so it feels timely again in these difficult times that we're all living through and facing. So this is called Self-Care. Some days it feels like a foreign language I'm asked to practice with new words for happiness, work, and love. I'm still learning how to say a cup of tea for no reason, what to call the extra honey I drizzle in, how to label the relentless urge to do more and more as useless, and how to translate the heart's pounding message when it comes, enough, enough. This morning I search for words to capture the glimmering sun as it lifts above the mountains, clouds already closing in as fat droplets of rain darken the deck. I'm learning to call this stillness self-care too, just standing here watching goldfinches scatter up from around the feeder, like pieces of bright yellow stained glass, reassembling in the sheltering arms of a maple. And this next poem that I'll share, again, also published in One Art, um, basically was written after a fight with my husband. I don't remember exactly what I said, but I said something unkind, not very mindful, and that led to the discomfort that led to this poem. So perhaps not all is lost when we have disagreements with our loved ones. This is called Peace Offering. I don't know what love is, but I know how to peel a blood orange, how to unravel the dimpled outer skin, then pick the pith from its pink flesh and hand it off to the man I love. Is love the need to give all we have to someone else? This feeling that if I don't share the abundance, I'll suffer alone for the rest of my life. Earlier, my husband sat in the living room, silent because I had said something that hurt him. Call this trucked in orange my makeup gift, my peace offering still cold from the fridge, as solid as a promise in the hand. I don't know how to stop failing at love, only that failure's the way to keep loving as imperfectly as we all must, pressing my lips against his clean, wet hair and holding out the sections I have peeled for him as if I grew them myself. And this next one is after a poet, Michael Sims, who edits another one of my favorite online publications called Vox Populi. And it's after his poem by the same name, Joy, that I believe is in his most recent book. But he wrote this poem, I think, during a session of my monthly writing community that Mark mentioned, and shared it with everyone. And it just sparked this poem for me. So I love when, a poem sparks a poem, sparks a poem, and I feel like we're always writing in each other's lineage. We're always engaged with each other's poetry, because I see every poem really as an invitation, as an open door. Some are just more open than others. And this one, again, is called Joy. Joy is the stranger who won't take no for an answer, who keeps knocking at the back door no one uses, who doesn't care about the mud he tracks in across pine floorboards when you let him inside. Joy is a slice of fresh baked sourdough slathered with salted butter when you should be doing your taxes, gathering receipts, sipping herbal tea. Joy is the laughter of a coffee pot sputtering on the counter and a carton of cream tipped into each cup. Joy is the friend you haven't seen in months, perhaps even years, and he presses his stubbled cheek hard against yours when he says hello, so your whole body remembers. I think we all need more joy right now. Um, I'm just realizing in reading these poems that obviously a lot of my poems engage with these larger themes like self-care, joy, compassion, and I'm always trying to bring those larger themes down to earth and down to the everyday physical reality of a lived life. And so that I think that's the running theme of these poems that I've chosen to share with you. So I'll share just a couple more and then pass it off to my fellow poets here. This next one is called Love What Comes. And it's not very obvious, but it kind of delineates how I try to live my life, but also how I try to practice the art of writing. I have a daily writing practice. That doesn't mean that I love everything that I write necessarily or that it's very good, but I'm always really grateful for whatever comes out of that daily writing practice. And I think that habit that I've tried to cultivate has made me much more productive because I'm not censoring myself and I'm not kind of beating myself up if something doesn't live up to my own internal barometer. So this is Love What Comes. Add this to my list of small ecstasies. The scent of pencils made from cedar, wafting up as soon as I open the box given to me by friends. The feel of real graphite imprinting a notebook page. And the crimson stubs of new peonies I watered this morning. Beginnings of leaves and ruffled blooms all stored inside a stem no larger than my thumb. So much of what we imagine turns out differently, swerves off course. Why not learn to love what comes as deeply as the idea first held in our minds? Like a poem traced lightly in pencil, or a star-shaped crocus pushing up through mulch, both leaning toward a source of light they can't quite see, but know is there. And I'll just end with this poem that is called Compassion. And this one is actually from the new book that Mark mentioned called Turning Toward Grief, which is, people often ask me because I publish a lot of anthologies, like, is this your own work or is this work by other people? So this is all a collection of my own poems that are around grief. And many of them were written after I lost my mother. It's been almost 3 years ago now. It was very sudden and it was very an explosive experience in my life because I was her main caregiver for many years. And and so I was writing these poems and often posting them on social media as I have a habit of doing. And an editor from Broadleaf Books actually saw what I was posting and contacted me and asked about creating a book. And, usually one is really excited about the prospect of a book. But in this case, I was like, oh, a book all about grief. I don't know if I can do that, honestly. I mean, it felt like a big ask to re-enter the world of these poems and revise them and, write about them. And so it was a long process, but I'm really grateful and really proud of the product. And mainly, I just hope that it helps other people who are dealing with larger global grief right now and personal grief as well. So this one is called Compassion, and this is actually one that's about my father, who I lost almost 25 years ago now. Compassion sat quietly beside me that December night with my father in the dim light of his ICU room, then led me by the hand to the end of the hallway where I bought him a cold bottle of Coke, which I placed sweating on his tray, unwrapping a straw and bending the end until it faced him. Now I see it was only compassion that kept my voice steady as I said goodbye to him, sensing it would be the last time, even as nurses hustled me out, said to go home and get some rest. only compassion that made me linger by his bed, gripping the calloused hand that had fixed so much for me over the years, then moving that bottle of soda a little closer so he could reach it once I was gone. Thanks all so much for listening. Really appreciate it.
So beautiful, James. Thank you. I'm sure most of us feel we could just listen to you read all day. Very relaxing and peaceful and joyful. That last poem, Compassion, I think about a lot. So many of your poems have this sort of instant canonical kind of feel. And that poem reminds me a lot in ways of Kwame Dawes' Coffee Break. There's definitely like a conversation happening there, and so much. I was thinking about your new collection coming out about grief, and a lot of what I write about and think about in recent years, especially since the pandemic, has been related to grief, loss, trauma, recovery, and which I often think of like as a sort of mirror of, the other sort of stuff that we both value a lot, like gratitude and joy and caregiving and kindness, and like there's sort of these mirror images. But it feels strange to say looking forward, but I'm looking forward to reading your book because I sense it may actually help me kind of process and maybe figure out ways to write some of the material that I may or may not want to share with the world, but at least writing it down might be a good thing. And this a last note that this is just almost kind of funny in some ways, but you write your poem, which one is it called? Peace Offering, and the orange. And I think about this poem, and when I think about it now, there's like a great episode of The Sex Lives of College Girls, which I know sounds very like Sivious or something, but it's actually a really clever, smart show that everyone should check out. And there's like the orange test in the show, which is just really, really funny, honestly. And so I don't know, I think about the orange in that capacity. And as a slight, quick mention of the modern times in which we live, hang up and kind of low key conspiracy I have about this show is that I was really enjoying this show. And I'm very convinced that it was canceled because of the regime that's currently around, and they just were not cool with the depiction, like such a heavy depiction of the queer community, which is really sad. So we're gonna stick in the positive space though, and again, thank you so much for that incredible reading, James, and for being with us. So next up, we have William Palmer. William's poetry has appeared in American Literary Review, Ecotone, I-70 Review, JAMA, which is a wonderful journal, One Art, of course, Salamander, and other journals. He is the author of 2 chapbooks, A String of Blue Lights and Humble. William's also been interviewed by Grace Cavalieri for her radio show, The Poet and the Poem, which I've been wondering, I don't actually think it's still going, and I don't think it's because of the current administration. I think she stopped it because I think Grace is about 90 at this point. But I really love that series, especially there's an episode with Major Jackson that I was kind of obsessed with. Anyhow, very cool that you were interviewed for that. So William is a retired professor of English from Alma College and lives in Traverse City, Michigan. William, thank you for being here. William, you're muted. There we go.
Okay. Thank you, Mark, and thank you all for being here. And thank you, James, for helping me see more connections between nature and spirit. I'd like to begin with a poem that's about my father. It's a poem that appeared in Ecotone in 2010. One note, I was not close with my father. 20 years or so after he died, I had this experience. It's called The Visit. Standing in the dark behind the screen door, I see a raspberry the size of my father by the streetlight. It glides toward me, then floats on the porch. I smell a sweetness, and when it presses gently on the screen, I press the side of my face to it and feel soft hairs. The smell deepens, and I stop wondering why this is happening. The raspberry moves back and looks like a dark heart made of tiny, dark hearts. It slowly turns, and I see it is the same on all sides. Then it tilts, and I see the mouth of its dark center where I know I came from. After it glides away, I stay there, the air through the screen more alive. And I know there are red traces on my face, but I don't need to see them. This is one of my first poems that Mark included in One Art, called A Green Veil. In college, I bought a Casio watch for a few bucks, cut off its rubber straps, and put it in my pocket, pulling it out when needed. It felt good in my hand, like a stone. When I taught before cell phones, I imagined a green veil over the clock that lowered when class began and rose when class ended. I wanted time to disappear for students, the way page numbers do with a book they discover they love. When my wife and I moved to East Bay in Traverse City, my neighbor Lowell gave us a Ziploc bag of lake trout he had caught that morning. This is a poem for him, The Sound. When Lowell learned he'd have a few more weeks, lightly, he asked me to come over. We sat downstairs by the wood stove and looked out at the steady waves and the light gray sky. He gave me a box of his favorite lures for lake trout and whitefish. When Carolyn came down and said she had to go to the store, she leaned over and hugged Lowell. I heard the sound of their wet kiss. I'm not sure why, but I was surprised to hear a wet kiss. But it just sounded alive, you know? It just sounded great. I'm on a Parkinson's journey, and Although Mark has published 2 of my poems about it, I'd like to share a shorter poem that appeared in Slant called The Yellow Mums. After the doctor tells me my disease is progressing, I drive home and notice the pot of bright yellow mums on the front porch my wife bought the week before. A single flower within the mass is turning brown. The brown will spread. It will progress. But when I pull at it, it tugs back. I was surprised that it tugged back, but it wasn't just the one little flower. It was like the whole plant was tugging back, and it was telling me, just leave that little flower alone. Yeah, it tugged back really hard. It's nice for old teachers when students stay in touch. This poem is called Rhonda Posts Our Photo on Facebook. At the end of her visit, Rhonda, my former student, asked me to hold her new book of poems as she takes a photo of us on her phone. And in that moment, I don't have time to think. So my smile opens wide, my teeth crooked and a little gray. And I don't care how I look, holding Rhonda's book with her beside me. The way I remember feeling in classes all those years, my smile unleashed. Since I've retired, my smile has not been unleashed as much. So it goes. I'd like to share 2 more poems. Sighing. I sigh a lot. My doctor calls it frequent involuntary sighing. But isn't all sighing involuntary? Does anyone say, I'm going to sigh now? We just sigh. I kept sighing after my friend Roseanne hanged herself. And I sighed between sobs on the steps of her church after a young priest claimed she would not go to heaven. Mark published this poem on Christmas Eve, 2022, called Maeve. She is wrapped in a blanket with a blue glow under her to reduce her jaundice, backlit like a small bough on a Christmas tree. My son changes her, then lays her in the curve of my arm. She wears only a diaper, her cord above it hardened, dark. As I speak to her, her eyes move on me, her tiny lips pushing out in perfect circles as if kissing air. I touch her ruddy feet, skim the soft skin of her chest and cheeks. I have forgotten how my son felt newborn, as if that part of me had fallen off. Just a year ago, my darkness black, I had thought of leaving. And here, now, I am holding Maeve, her name Irish, for joy. Thank you.
Wonderful poems, William. Thank you. I think that sighing poem is incredibly powerful, and so much of your work, I think, really speaks to it's one of the many, but a strong aspect of what I go for with one art, which is this, sort of verisimilitude, very true to life and very close to reality. We were speaking before everyone else entered the event about, the kind of people living in sort of the real towns of Richard Hugo's triggering towns concept. And I think, especially living in Michigan for a long time, maybe there's something very, very close to reality in your poems, that it's, everything feels very down to earth and real, and, approachable in a good way for readership. And really, it really makes the reader feel so very powerful.
Thank you.
Thank you. Our next reader today is Andrea. Actually, tell me, am I saying your name wrong? Is it Potos, like the plant, or Potos? Oh, you're muted. Andrea, you're muted.
Unmute. There. It's actually POTUS, as in POTIS.
Oh, it's just like the acronym for President of the United
Yes,
States.
except not now.
Except not now.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So really okay, well, we'll talk about this at length sometime, but clearly
Sure.
this must have followed you your whole life about, that your last name is this acronym, and people thinking, well, she must grow up to be president. This is the only option. So Andrea, President of the United States, is the author of several collections of poetry, most recently Two Emilys from Kelsay Books and Her Joy Becomes, Fernwood Press. I should note many one art poets have been publishing with Fernwood. I've seen a lot of publications from them recently. A new collection entitled The Presence of One Word is forthcoming September 23rd. I think I have that right?
That's right. Soon.
Excellent. Yeah, very exciting. Recent poems by Andrea can be found in CALYX Journal, Presence, the New York Times Book Review, Earth's Daughters, and Poem. And I'll drop a link in the chat with links to her website and books and forthcoming. So Andrea, thanks so much for being here.
Oh, well, I'm delighted. I'm sorry about I had trouble joining. I was panicking. I'm not big on technology, and it looks like I have my husband's name there, but that's really me. It
Okay.
says Michael Slater, so sorry.
Okay. Well, I'm going to pretend that Michael is, just the brother of Christian Slater. That's going to be my.
Hey, he's heard that too.
Oh, okay. Wow. You have a very interesting name thing going.
And also, there's some famous surfer that's named Slater, and he was a surfer too. So that's also another thing. But anyway, I've been delighted to be in One Art during the years, and yesterday. Mark published 4 of mine, which I call the Quartet of Mom Poems, and he saw how perfectly they fit together to be brought out in one day. And I'm so thrilled about it. I hadn't even really thought of them that way. But yet here they were. So I'll just first read 2 of them, of the quartet. The whole quartet you can see online. As you know, I write a lot about my mom, who passed 9 years ago, yet for me, she is ever present. And this one is called at the nail salon. High, bright ceilings, 2 wall-sized video screens showing lapis blue and white domes and the red cliffs of Santorini. Beside it, 2 small signs are posted: kindness, gratitude. The same words my mother used when once my daughter asked, "What would you say, Yaya, is your life's philosophy?" I'm thinking of her sitting beside me on the soft, pale chair as quiet Elizabeth files and trims and buffs my nails, applies one clear coat and another, and then another, all the way to my chosen pink called Beloved, carrying a sheen like an opal within it, like pearlescent sky on the verge of summer sunset, as I hear my mother saying, "Beautiful, honey." And I actually had someone tell me this once, and whenever people say annoying things to me, they always end up in a poem. So people should be warned about that. When the woman asked, "Isn't it time to stop writing poems about my mother?" I looked away, seeing into memories of Monet's water lilies, canvas after canvas of shifting reflections in water, each moment altering the whole. And I remembered how changed his haystacks appeared in noon light, or in the snow, or laying under the setting sun. I feel there's no end to the different permutations and variations of writing about the things you love and the things that compel you. Like James, I too have a daily practice, which is sometimes really frustrating and sometimes really wonderful, always accompanied by coffee. But sometimes what I do when I feel stuck, William Stafford said, "There's no such thing as writer's block, just lower your standards." And I totally believe that. I am so believing of that. So part of lowering my standards some days is just writing down words. And this is about that. Daily practice. Some mornings, all I do is write down words. Cistern, tribal, cached. Copying them from sprawled pages of books across my desk, words that call out: glimmerings, cursive, saffron, heartwood. Holding me in place as if to say, "Listen, you may need me someday. I might offer you another way toward beauty or even beyond." And I should say that this poem and the ones that are following are from the new collection that's coming out in 2 weeks by Fernwood Press. And I'm very happy with it. And this is a reprinted poem in the book. I'm very against despair. I don't like to feel despair. I don't believe in despair. And I try and find a way out of despair. And I think of my grandmother who embodied this for me because she lost her 3-year-old son in a terrible accident in 1939. So it all starts from that. And I wrote a poem about the family. Against despair. My grandmother wept at her kitchen sink for her son, dead at 3 years old. Through her long life, she crocheted 97 Afghans, sewed my dresses, my mother's pillows and drapes, cooked the succulent Greek chicken, the spanakopita and pastizo for dozens at her Sunday table. My grandfather in 1943 lost all his savings, lay prone in his bed for weeks. His youngest child would peek through the crack in the door to see him before he rose to work 16 hours every day in his Harmony diner, where my twin aunts scampered behind the counter to build themselves sundaes with extra cherries, and my 16-year-old mother sat upstairs in the office becoming a grown-up, typing the daily specials: hot turkey with mashed potatoes and gravy, grilled pork chops on a toasted bun, layer cake a la mode, double malted milk, and coffee, always coffee. 5 cents a cup in those days, guaranteed strong and hot, infinitely refillable. And this poem appeared in One Art a couple years ago, Waiting Beside My Father. In the ICU room, 10 days where he coma slept, arranged by the doctor to rest his brain after the fall, I sat beside him. I remember wearing my slate blue jacket with the big ruffle at the collar, its cotton soft and somehow reassuring on my body as I watched the nurses glide by in the gleaming hallways, and the kind hospitalist arrived with a lift of hope in his voice. Inside me, I felt a small carved chapel of patience I didn't know I possessed. I closed my eyes, apologized to my father for years of crabbiness between us. I felt his brain smoothing out its frenzy, as if floating on a long journey, as if a river was carrying us, though I had never learned to swim. And also for my dear friend Rosemary, who passed away 2 years ago. This was also in One Art. Thank you, Mark. Of course, after she died, I kept going over everything. Oh, I think I will read 2 of them for Rosemary. And I think we all do this after a death. After learning my friend has died, and so it begins, the tallying backwards to remember. When was the last telephone call? The last text message? The last email? The last time seen her face? Her skin still lovely smooth in her 69th year. Hearing her buoyant laughter that late afternoon on her patio, September sun lighting up the back of her head in the photo, she later joked, finally made her into some form of angelic being. And here's my list for Rosemary. Today I tried making a list of all the places we gathered together. Lombardino's for Italian, La Brioche for bi-weekly poetry tea, Bubble Up Bar for nightcaps, the bookshops where you'd sit front row whenever I gave a reading. And I will never not see you settling into your living room side chair while waiting for your signature bolognese sauce to find its final perfection for our dinners. There you are again, drawing your finger upwards through your light hair as you make another passionate point, your smile widening ablaze. You are looking at me as you speak. How easy it was to love myself in that glow. And I think the best friends do that for us, show ourselves what goodness might be in us. And Rosemary always did that for me. And I will end on a poem by one of my favorite writers, who's also gone now, Brian Doyle. Those of you know him. He died of brain cancer in 2018. And he was a hoot and very deep and wonderful. And he wrote many things. He was editor of the Portland Magazine for a long time. But he made a poem about what he needed to do that day. It was a list poem. So I like to try that myself. To do morning after Brian Doyle. I will wake in the morning and listen for the cardinal. I will slip on the warm socks I laid aside the evening before. I will lift and billow the bed covers, tidy them into a smooth field for the dog to jump on during the day. I will hold the banister so as not to slip on the carpeted stairs as I descend to make my coffee. I will lean near to the pot so I can breathe deeply the scent of the dark grounds. I will listen for the first gurgle and drip that signals my morning's desire will soon be in hand. I will just then notice a fragment of a dream floating past me in the kitchen air. I will stand a moment in silence for all I have forgotten in the nights and also in the days, the dreams and the presences living their wondrous, irrepressible lives without me. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Andrea. That
Thank
was
you.
a terrific reading. I love your added comments and so many lovely moments in there. I was definitely reflecting on how did you say it? You said, "I don't believe in despair,"
Yeah,
which I appreciate because I've really kind of like for the first time had some issue with that recently. A little bit of Trump 2.0
sure.
and the AI fear related stuff. Just things that I had to sort of stop reading too much of. So,
Mhm.
we live in a tricky time where, what we pay attention to matters a great deal. But
Absolutely.
yeah, it's clear that you've, determined or developed a good attitude, and it sounds like it was kind of baked into a little bit, which is good. So thank you so much. That was
Thank you.
wonderful. Okay, our next reader is Michael T. Young. Michael's fourth collection, Mountain Climbing a River, will be published by Broadstone Media in late 2025. His third full-length collection, The Infinite Doctrine of Water, was longlisted for the Julie Suck Award. He received a fellowship from the New Jersey State Council of the Arts and the Jean Pedrick Chapbook Award. His poetry is featured on Verse Daily, which I love, and the Writer's Almanac, which I've revealed a few times recently. I don't think this is unobvious, but the Writer's Almanac, I think, influenced my own taste quite a bit, and I think that can be seen in what gets curated in One Art. Michael's work has also appeared in many journals, including the I-70 Review, Mid-Atlantic Review, Squaw Valley Journal, where I used to work, and Vox Populi. And I will drop a few links in the chat with links to Michael's work and website. Michael, thanks so much for being with us.
Thank you. Thank you, Mark, for inviting me. I really was blessed to receive the invitation. And thank you to the other readers. I mean, James and William and Andrea and Gloria. It's really wonderful to read with all of you. Really, I swear, of course, see everybody's work on One Art, and it's always wonderful to be able to, get together with other writers and that you've come to see in different journals and read together. So I'm really blessed by this. I'll just read a few. I'm going to read this first poem is it's a poem I wrote shortly after my wife. She was hit by a car a little over 2 years ago, and still working through some of the aftermath of that. But I wrote this poem called Impact. It feels callous to admit, but still true, that when a car hits a stranger, since you don't know their favorite flavor of ice cream, you can still remember yours. Bought in Florence, just off the Palazzo del Duomo, with your wife. The wife who now is in the street, in front of the car that just hit her, which collapses the world to a pinpoint, outside of which nothing else exists, except a stillness inside you that aches and tingles, like a limb that's been asleep your whole life and is being used for the first time, now that the impact you weren't there to see strikes you. The absurdity of being inside, sitting at a desk, or getting a glass of water, while this happened outside, where the figure lies in the middle of the street, face down by the double yellow line that seems like an equal sign, stretched out and insisting that no one is more important than anyone else. Although the moment is more specific and personal than the swirls and patterns of the iris of one's own eye, and nothing is more unsettling than the emptiness of one's own head. And it wouldn't seem strange if a manta ray swam by over the streetlights, and Dolly's clocks melted in the trees, and the only thing you could bring yourself to think or wish is that those clocks don't tell you time is up. This next one is I think it's pretty self-explanatory. I guess the only thing I'll mention is that the reference to Plato's metaphor is to his metaphor of the ship of state that comes up. And this is called Salt and Pepper. If salt preserves like memory, maybe pepper is forgetfulness. This might explain why riot police pepper sprayed the crowd that listened to violinists playing for the memory of Elijah McClain, a violinist who died at the hands of police. It was memory they tried to erase of a life, of a violence, of a tune, and the way a tune is carried, and the way a tune can carry us. Which is why I think back further to Hartley and his quintet playing until the slow Atlantic waters swallowed the Titanic. They went down with the ship, performing to calm the passengers. It's a bit of history floating on the surface like flotsam, and I hold on to it because I want to believe we're not on a sinking ship. But every morning seems more waterlogged, farther off course. Even Plato's metaphor runs aground, because he fooled no one putting a philosopher king on the throne. We know he meant that only his kind is fit to rule. It's a common ignorance to believe that in a night as dark as peppercorn, there isn't another iceberg drifting like a towering salt crystal and preserving in its ice channels a trace of the one thing that will sink us. Things will get brighter, I promise. Um, Now I'm going to read this one next. It just occurred to me that it connects well with that one, the idea of erasure. And this poem did appear in One Art recently. It's called Erased. I just realized it connected to that poem. If you're not familiar with Mahler's Ninth Symphony, the way it ends, it has this slow dying away at the end in the final movement where gradually every instrument just goes silent, just one instrument at a time, just going silent. That plays a significant role here. Erased. I sit in the dark listening to Mahler's Ninth Symphony. It's a night a long way into the new world. I can see its outlines and how this last movement is a prolonged diminishment, one instrument at a time disappearing into silence, like the loss of so many things. We hardly notice them gone until we can't hear them, like a friend moving farther and farther away into a distance that finally is too remote for us to reach across, or freedom to speak our mind, dwindled by a word here, a word there. And there goes another violin, sinking into the absence of what we believed in, who we thought we were, a kind of people who could defy every power contrary to us, what it meant to be American. But here I am in the dark, on a cold night, deep into the new country, listening to an Austrian composer. Now the cost of the needed medicine or food drives us to work so late. We're always tired, and there's only collapsing into a moment of exhaustion at the end of a day, watching TV or listening to music, until that last violin holds as long as it can the final note, a melodic fragment that Mahler marked in his German script, a notation meaning completely dying away. Yeah, maybe I'll just read two more poems. This one is, this was mentioned earlier, Vox Populi. This was published in Vox Populi. And it's called Wentel Trap. And it's, if you're not familiar with it, there's a mollusk called the Wentel Trap. And they make these beautiful shells. They're very tiny, really small, but they're my favorite shell. They're just amazing. If you've never seen one, just do a quick Google of one. They're really worth it. And this poem is called Wentel Trap. This porcelain white staircase spirals in tight curves, lacing toward the center of a house. Its halls are lined with relics of a predatory snail who had a knack for architecture. But for all his artistry, he lacked care and left his masterpiece behind for a stranger to stumble upon and follow its tears in the winding semblance of his mind. And I'll conclude with this poem, which is called Endings. So it always seems appropriate to end with this poem. I don't always end with this poem. It's a relatively new poem. So endings. They pile up like driftwood at a bend in the river. There, the scent of decay grows over them through days and weeks. By some definitions, it's a stench driving tourists away, making for that silence in which fungi, the truly creative, begin remaking it in their own image. The waters corrode the barks and pack the soggy pulp into the embankment, fertilizing the soil with the patience of slugs and earthworms, an endurance that waits for no victory day, but will flower slowly into a field of thick grass and maple trees, a place where someone, in the swelter of summer heat, will find some shade under which to make some important decision. Thank you very much.
That's terrific. Thank you, Michael. Your poems, they always get me thinking. There's always a lot of depth and surprise. I never know what to expect when you send me work. And listening now, I feel like something that your poems do is they tend to ask the reader to ask themselves a lot of questions, maybe even more so perhaps than your average poem. Which, so
Thank you.
Yeah, very, very thought-provoking.
I'm glad to hear that.
Much thanks, Michael. So last but certainly not least, we have Gloria Heffernan with us. Gloria's forthcoming book, Fused, will be published by Shanti Arts in actually, I'm sorry, this is an old bio. It actually was published in spring of 2025. And her craft book, Exploring Poetry of Presence, was published by Black Porch Productions and won the 2021, is that, maybe that's a typo, CNY, is it CUNY or no? It is
Central New York.
Oh, okay. So it did with the CNY Book Award for Nonfiction. But I want to mention that Exploring Poetry of Presence is like a way to do a sort of deeper look of the Poetry of Presence anthology. Is it just the first one or both?
Yeah, I wrote the companion guide for the first one, and Rosemary Watola-Trummer wrote the guide for the second one.
Gotcha. Okay.
Pretty
Very
awesome
cool.
company to be in. So
Apart from James's anthologies, I often recommend the Poetry of Presence anthologies. That, oh, I'm totally blanking on their names.
Phyllis Cole Dye and
And
Ruby
Ruby Wilson.
Wilson.
Right, right. Thank you. Both so wonderful anthologies. I can put a link in the chat. And Gloria, you're also the author of the collection that appears to be in Italian, which I always struggle to say.
It's Latin, and I learned a really important lesson by titling the book something that most people can't pronounce, but it's Peregrinatio, Poems for Antarctica.
Okay, so there we are. And also, this is a great way to go through a bio, I think. And what the gratitude list said to the bucket list, which is an amazing title from NYQ Books. And her work has appeared in over 100 publications, including Poetry of Presence. And I'll drop some links in the chat and let Gloria share some poems with us. Gloria, thank you.
Thank you so much, Mark. It is such a joy to be here. I just want to echo what everyone has said. I am very grateful not only for the journal, One Art, but for the community that you've created through it. It's a wonderful, it's just a wonderful thing, and I thank you for that. The poems that I'll be reading are from the recent book, Fused, but it includes several that ran in One Art as well, and I'm happy to share those. But I'm going to start with the title poem, Fused. I could not hear the blood entering my vein, one drop at a time, all night long. 4 pints, 4 donors, 4 faces I would never see, hands I would never touch. I could not hear their voices, the languages they spoke, the prayers they prayed. I did not know what car they drove, or who they voted for, or why. But I knew I would die without them. I knew the rupture in my body would only be healed because 4 strangers said yes. And now I cannot look at the woman in the grocery store, or the man who cut me off in traffic, or the people in line at the voting booth without wondering, did you save my life? The next poem that I'm going to read is one of those poems that I was overjoyed to find in One Art. And actually, this was from the first submission that you accepted. So I particularly appreciate it. It's called It Figures. My favorite figure skaters are not the ones who score a perfect 10. My favorites are the ones who fall. More specifically, the ones who fall and get back up without even brushing the powdered ice from their bruised behinds. They just clamber to their feet and go. They are my heroes. Why are there no gold medals for them? What is 3 minutes of perfection compared to a lifetime of resilience? Thank you. This next poem is called Elegy for the Magi Trees. I called them the Magi Trees since the first time I saw them. 3 giant Norway spruce, just behind the rise of the drumlin beyond our backyard. Regal trees, bearing wisdom and gifts, always on the verge of scaling that small hill, always on the brink of arrival. For years, I watched them reveal themselves in the dimmest early morning light, drinking my coffee before sunrise, under their watchful presence. In winter darkness, when frost tipped their branches, they shimmered in the moonlight as if all the constellations had descended for just a few hours to rest on their limbs and offer a night light to the deer reclining in the bend of their roots. And then the heavy equipment, the roar of the chainsaws, the descent one after the other like innocent men lined up before a firing squad. I watched, gutted, nothing to do but witness. Wood chippers made quick work of the remains. Later in the day, I walked to the site, gathered 3 pine cones, carried them home. Spunk. Spunk is one of those poems that I believed so much in that after the 40th rejection, I said, either they're wrong or I am. So I put it in the book, which I think was worthwhile. Spunk. It's what Rosie the Riveter had rolled up in the sleeve of her blue work shirt as she declared, "We can do it." It's what Nancy Drew had as she darted across town in her yellow roadster, solving crimes in a stylish trench coat and beret. Surely it's what Betty Davis had when she warned her friends to fasten your seatbelts. It's going to be a bumpy night. It's what my mother had when she marched up to PS 17 to confront the 7th grade teacher who delighted in bullying me. It's what she relied on when she told him, if he made me cry again, I wouldn't be the only one coming home from school in tears. It's what I have when I would rather be quiet and mind my own business. But I can't because I am her daughter. This poem is called To My Stepson on Mother's Day, and I just want to be mindful of the time, so I'll end with this one. A fraught phrase indeed, bent under the weight of Cinderella's grasping interloper and Sleeping Beauty's apple-wielding witch. Better to say, my father's wife. Less literary baggage and no less accurate. But you made a different choice. Nothing dramatic, no naming ceremony, just a simple introduction. This is my stepmom. A small thing to some, but not, I think, to you, nor me. Although I played no role in making you the man you are, you chose with one word to extend the invitation only I could accept. Step in, you said. Step into my life. Step into my heart. Step into my family. So thank you. And thank you so much for the incredible joy of being part of this group of poets. It's been a tremendous honor and joy. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Gloria. And wow, that was very touching and heart-wrenching.
Yeah, thanks.
You're always a wonderful presence. Thank you, of course, to all of our readers, and you're all appreciated, and to everyone who was in attendance. I hope you have enjoyed yourself and, you know, taken in all the myriad emotions. So I'm gonna stop recording now.